Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. It's great to be here as always. Yesterday, I covered the reemergence, rebranding, and resurgence of the people from Big Daddy Unlimited, quite possibly the worst business that we have seen in our community in my lifetime. But I did make a mistake in yesterday's video. I erroneously identified the WOT trigger as not covered by the decision out of Reed O'Connor's office, of which I did a dedicated video on that document. I covered that story, so I'm intimately familiar with that document. However, in spite of that, I still made a mistake in saying that the WOT is not covered by Reed O'Connor's decision, and that is erroneous information. It absolutely is. I think I tripped up in a few different places here, but the real precipitating spot that you can use as a reference is the motion for stay that the ATF filed on Thursday. I had not read that document yet. I was going solely off of Reed O'Connor's first decision. And you have to also know that the WOT people, the Big Daddy Unlimited people, were supposed to relinquish all of those devices to Rare Breed, and then Rare Breed could decide what to do with them. They're not allowed to sell the WOT trigger. And that was really kind of the whole point of yesterday's video. In addition to saying, hey, they're back, beware of these people, it was to also say that I believe that they are still selling these products that they're not supposed to have. If you look at the motion for stay, they expressly state in that document that they believe them to be analogous products, which they are analogous products. One of them is considerably inferior, I might add, having handled both of them. So for clarification, I guess it really comes down to how you read and interpret this document. That the document being the original decision from Reed O'Connor. And there's really two different ways that I think that that can be done. The first is that FRT refers to the FRT15 as a product, or it refers to a classification of devices. And having now read this supplemental piece of information from the ATF, consider the source, of course, I believe that the document should be read to be a classification of devices, even though the ATF just treats them as distinctly different products. Now, what I would also say is that my original statement about the WOT being considered a machine gun by the ATF is still valid, because the ATF in this document does say that they are going to challenge continuously as they appeal whether it meets the statutory definition of a machine gun or not under the Cargill decision. This is why I and several people have said, hey, maybe not run out and buy those things right now. And I'm sure that the Rare Breed people will be upset with me for saying that, but they are going to challenge this. Now, personally, I don't think that there's any reason for the Fifth Circuit to overturn the decision of Reed O'Connor's office. It is my opinion that the ATF is completely wrong in this instance, and that this is just a giant pour of copium. However, currently, we have two things in place. One is a vacature of the rule, as in it's thrown out. So they have to start over, if you will. And then there's injunctive relief for the plaintiffs. So nobody can be prosecuted on the current rule as it stands because the rule has been thrown out, unless the Fifth Circuit decides that was too heavy-handed and they throw out the vacature, in which case it's down to the people who are members of NAGR, specifically people like Rare Breed and their downstream clientele. So my statement stands: do not buy WOT triggers from random other people. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. And that is why I would tell you to go watch yesterday's video. And the real crux of the whole argument here is that these underhanded people are back. They left their industry clients for millions of dollars when they declared bankruptcy and just left off on their bills because they literally were not paying those vendors. And they left their customers holding the bag for probably that much more individually, because I've received hundreds of reports of people saying, yeah, I bought this and they never shipped it and they never refunded my money, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the whole point. So after we hear a word from our sponsor today, I'll come back and tell you what I think is actually going on here. Mission First Tactical is a brand that many of you know and have used over the years, but they also offer a wide variety of things that are outside of the norm, like their Gray Man backpacks. They also do holsters as well as drinkware items and things like that. We have 2 discount codes prepped up for you guys over at Mission First Tactical. One of them is the everything all the time discount code, and then the other one is anything that they're getting ready to discontinue. That one is going to be like 50 or 60% off in many cases. So special thanks to Mission First Tactical for supporting the channel and making content like this possible. Now, what I think is going on and what the evidence suggests to me, as well as I might also say that I too can develop moles and not just kill them in my yard. There was a certain quantity of property, some assets that BDU had in their possession. Now, a lot of those assets were seized as part of this whole thing. We reported on that in my 2 videos ago on them. As in literally their vendors, their previous vendors said, hey, cops, go get this stuff. It's ours. We want it back, before BDU can off it and just not pay us for it, right? However, there are certain other properties, assets, excuse me, that they literally can't move. Things like post-sample machine guns. Post-sample machine guns are sort of unique in that once you create them, they basically have a home, and there are very few ways that you can move them. One of them is the law letter avenue, which is you... a law enforcement agency wants a demonstration of that device so you can transfer it to a new home for the purposes of those demonstrations, but you have to have a law enforcement agency sign off on that. And you got to be careful about that, because if you remember back, Larry Vickers got jacked up pretty bad over that sort of stuff, that whole defrauding people over the demos thing. The other way that those devices can be moved is if you are losing your license or losing your SOT. So you can just straight up not pay the tax, for instance, in which case you can find a new home for those because you can no longer possess them. You either have to destroy them or move them, and that would not require a law letter. It would be enforced by the ATF that they must move. In many instances, though, those will result in likely destructions. But if you're having your FFL taken, then oftentimes you can move those post-sample machine guns to another FFL without a law letter. And if you've ever been browsing certain websites that deal in this sort of thing, yeah. Sorry to jump my thought, but I just got all the data that I needed. How about an FN SCAR 17, an MP7A1, an AK-47, and an M3 grease gun? All of them post-sample machine guns listed with no law letter and sold out of Gainesville, Florida. For those of you who want definitive proof, I will have another cut of this video over on Rumble where I can actually post this type of imagery and you guys can see what it is that I'm talking about. If you were, hypothetically speaking, an FFL holder that is losing your license because you had to declare bankruptcy because you are in the hole to your previous vendors and customers to the tune of several $1 million, and you were to sell those post-sample machine guns, then the proceeds from those sales would be lost to the bankruptcy. Unless, of course, you were to transfer those items to another holder who is not yourself at zero cost. So if you were to take them from FFL 1, just give them to FFL 2, no money changes hands. It is now insulated from bankruptcy. Hypothetically speaking, if you didn't have to ship those items because the items never entered a shipping carrier, say, for instance, they were to come get them or be located at the same address that the old FFL was located at, coincidence, then there would be no record of those things leaving whatsoever. It would be behind the bound books that you only have to show to the ATF. What do you think happens if you look up Big Daddy Unlimited's FFL right now? If you were to use FFL Easy Check, it says, do not transfer to this entity without first consulting the ATF. Even though that FFL does not expire until October of this year. I rest my case.